From disaster to done.
East Texas Restoration Report. From disaster to done.
You know, it's a really funny thing about human nature and like the physical spaces we inhabit every day.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about walking down the hallway of your office right now, or maybe your apartment building, or even just, wandering through the aisles of a local grocery store.
Right.
There is this one object that is always there, painted bright red, hanging right on the wall in plain sight, and you completely and utterly ignore it.
I mean, you have to be talking about the fire extinguisher.
It's a fire extinguisher, exactly.
Yeah.
You buy it, or, well, the building manager buys it, usually grudgingly because some fire marshal told them they had to.
Right. It's a compliance thing.
Exactly. You stick it in a corner or mount it behind that little piece of breakable glass. You mentally check off a box that says, compliance met, and then you go about your daily life.
Just desperately hoping you never actually have to look at the thing again.
Yes. It is an object defined almost entirely by our collective desire to pretend it doesn't exist.
It really is. It functions as the physical embodiment of a box-ticking exercise.
Totally.
We purchase it to alleviate liability, right? To pass an inspection. Not necessarily because we're actively engaged in the process of fighting fire.
Right.
We're paying for peace of mind, or really legal cover, rather than the physical reality of utilizing the tool.
I mean, when you walk past it, you aren't thinking about the chemical composition of the retardant.
No, or the PSI of the nozzle. You're just acknowledging its presence as a symbol of compliance.
And that brings us to the core of what we're unpacking for you today, because if you're managing a team, sitting on a board, or even just analyzing operational resilience, you undoubtedly encounter these documents.
Oh, yeah, the binders.
The binders, protocols labeled with terms like Emergency Ready Profile or Business Continuity Plan.
That's so official.
Sounds incredibly official.
Yeah.
But in practice, they often feel hollow. They become the corporate equivalent of that red fire extinguisher.
Yeah, just gathering dust.
Yeah, exactly. So today, we are doing a deep dive into a really specific framework. We're pulling from excerpts in Strategic Foundations of Emergency Readiness Response, specifically focusing on Episode 9, Emergency Ready Profile, Why It Actually Matters.
It's a great piece of source material.
It is. It's dense, almost deceptively simple in its principles, and our mission today is to completely dismantle how organizations typically view this concept of the ERP.
And you can tell right away the authors of this framework they're clearly starting from a defensive posture.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you read the foundational text, you get this sense that they are fighting an uphill battle against, widespread corporate apathy.
Oh, for sure.
They are acutely aware that the vast majority of organizations treat readiness as a binder sitting on a shelf.
Which is why the stated purpose of this framework hit me so hard right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The very first directive is to reframe the ERP as a strategic tool, not a sales pitch.
And that deliberate choice of the word reframe is it's critical. Reframing isn't about changing the physical object, or rewriting the document itself. It's about fundamentally altering the cognitive lens through which the executive team actually views it.
Making them see it differently.
Exactly. The text is setting up this stark contrast between a strategic tool and a sales pitch. Because if we think about the psychology of organizational procurement, when an initiative is viewed as a sales pitch, the immediate reaction is defensive.
Right, the guard goes up immediately. I mean, a sales pitch implies a transactional relationship.
Yes.
It implies some external vendor is trying to extract value from the company by leveraging fear.
Right, the classic FUD tactics: fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Exactly. It's like, buy this disaster recovery package or you'll lose all your data. It feels like an external imposition, just another expense line on the quarterly budget that everyone resents.
And when leadership views readiness as an external imposition, what do? They do the bare minimum.
The cheapest option.
The absolute cheapest option that satisfies the compliance auditor. It's like getting the undercoating on a new car because the salesman wore you down.
Right. You don't actually believe it protects the vehicle.
You really don't.
Yeah.
But this framework demands a radical shift in identity away from that mindset.
Yeah.
By insisting the ERP is a strategic tool, the argument is that readiness has to be internalized. It cannot be an add-on.
Right.
It has to be integrated into the core architecture of the business because a strategic tool is something you own.
You use it to build value.
Exactly. Protect revenue streams, navigate the operational landscape. It's yours.
Okay, I hear that. But let's talk about the actual friction of doing that in a real corporate environment.
Sure.
Because if I'm a business leader, how do you make a CEO or board of directors care about a profile?
It's tough.
Structurally, the word profile sounds so passive. It sounds like a PDF document sitting on a SharePoint server somewhere that no one reads. Strategy, on the other hand, sounds dynamic. It dictates market movement, acquisitions, product launches. So how do we bridge that gap? How does a static document become an active, living strategy at the board level?
Well, that is the ultimate hurdle. And overcoming it requires elevating this whole concept of risk from just basic operations to actual fiduciary duty.
Oh, okay. Fiduciary duty.
Yeah. Think about how a company views its financial strategy, right?
Right.
The financial strategy might be documented in static spreadsheets or, quarterly projections.
Sure.
But the strategy itself dictates every single hiring freeze, every capital expenditure, every geographical expansion. The spreadsheet just records it.
Right. The strategy is lived daily.
Exactly. It's lived. The framework is suggesting that an emergency ready profile has to be treated with that exact same level of gravity.
So it's not just the facilities manager checking the backup generator once a month.
No, absolutely not. If it is genuinely a strategic tool, it means the executive team is using it to assess the actual day-to-day viability of their entire enterprise.
So it's taking the ERP out of the basement utility closet and literally dropping it onto the mahogany table in the boardroom.
That's a great image. Yes.
It's forcing leadership to acknowledge that this isn't just about knowing where the fire exits are. It's about answering the fundamental question, like, will this company legally and operationally exist tomorrow if a catastrophic variable is introduced today?
Right. It shifts the entire conversation from compliance to survival, and honestly, beyond survival to competitive advantage.
That's a huge shift.
It is, because a sales pitch sells you compliance, right? But a strategic tool ensures your survival.
Yeah.
And more importantly, when leadership truly internalizes that difference, the ERP becomes the lens through which they view everything. Supply chain vulnerabilities, vendor dependencies, even real estate acquisitions.
Wait, real estate? How so?
Well, if you're looking to open a new manufacturing facility, a true strategic ERP dictates that you don't just look at tax incentives.
Oh, I see.
You have to look at the floodplains, the local grid stability, regional emergency infrastructure. The profile literally becomes the blueprint for how the business interacts with reality.
Wow. Okay. That reframing changes the entire weight of the conversation. It moves us from a hypothetical checkbox to a foundational pillar of the business.
Exactly.
And once you establish that the ERP is a high-level strategy, you really have to look at how that strategy deploys when reality hits.
Right, the actual execution.
Right. And the source framework lays out a very specific timeline for how a crisis unfolds. It's structured around 3 core themes: pre-loss planning, speed of response, and business continuity.
Yeah, and what really stands out about those 3 themes is the strict chronological sequence. The authors have essentially distilled the chaotic, multivariable life cycle of a crisis into 3 distinct temporal phases.
The before, the during, and the after.
Exactly. But the terminology they use for the before is particularly striking to me.
Yeah, pre-loss planning.
Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say pre-emergency planning or pre-incident planning.
That's true.
The use of the word loss is highly, highly intentional. It forces an immediate psychological confrontation.
Like bracing for impact.
Exactly. By stating pre-loss, the framework mandates the acknowledgement that a loss is definitely going to happen.
It just strips away the optimism bias entirely. It's not saying, hey, let's make a plan just in case things go wrong.
Well,
It is declaring upfront that a loss is an inevitable reality of operating a business over a long enough timeline.
and optimism bias is arguably the greatest enemy of organizational preparation.
Really? The greatest enemy.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Executives are, by nature and incentive structure, extremely optimistic.
Well, yeah, you don't get to the C-suite by constantly predicting doom and gloom.
Exactly. You get there by projecting growth, efficiency, scale.
Yeah.
So when you ask a leadership team to plan for a disaster, there is this natural, almost subconscious resistance.
Like, that won't happen to us.
Exactly. Everyone walks around believing that the catastrophic cyber attack, the 100-year flood, the supply chain collapse, that's going to happen to the other company.
Right.
So pre-loss planning is a fundamentally pessimistic term utilized for a highly constructive purpose. It forces the organization to look at their pristine operations and just assume catastrophic failure.
Because if you don't assume failure, you can't build the architecture to mitigate it.
Precisely.
Let's ground this for a second. Imagine a highly optimized, like just-in-time manufacturing company.
Okay.
If their optimism bias tells them their suppliers will always deliver on time, they carry zero excess inventory, right? Just to save money.
Yep, maximizing efficiency.
But if they engage in genuine pre-loss planning, they have to mathematically assume the port shuts down.
Right.
They have to assume the loss of materials. And that assumption fundamentally changes their inventory strategy, their warehouse footprint, their cash flow requirements.
But everything changes.
The before dictates the shape of the entire business.
And that bedrock of the before is what directly powers the during.
The speed of response.
Exactly. The framework identifies the during phase as speed of response. This is that immediate tactical reaction window when the event transitions from theoretical to actual.
So when the alarms are literally ringing, or I don't know, when the IT monitoring dashboard suddenly lights up red with a ransomware intrusion.
Yes. In the chaos of that immediate aftermath, the ultimate currency is time.
Right.
Every single second that passes without a coordinated definitive response just compounds the physical or financial loss. The speed of response is essentially the metric by which the quality of the pre-loss planning is actually judged.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a beautiful plan, but if it takes your executive team 6 hours to convene a secure call and make a decision during a cyber breach,
It's too late.
the exfiltration is already complete, the loss is total.
Okay, wait. That friction between planning and speed is fascinating. Because I'm thinking of a highly regulated industry, let's say a publicly traded healthcare provider.
Okay, good example.
Speed of response can actually conflict with compliance in that scenario, right?
Absolutely.
There's a data breach. The IT team wants to immediately sever the external network connections to stop the bleeding. That's speed.
Right, pull the plug.
But severing the network might violate internal protocols about preserving forensic evidence. Or worse, it might shut down patient care portals, which creates a life safety issue and a massive legal liability.
Yes.
If they haven't sorted out those conflicts in the pre-loss phase, speed is impossible because everyone is just terrified of being sued or fired for making the wrong call.
There's a perfect illustration of why the chronological sequence is unbreakable. You cannot achieve speed of response through sheer willpower or like adrenaline in the moment.
Right. Adrenaline just makes people panic.
Adrenaline in a corporate crisis usually results in erratic, very damaging decisions. True speed of response is simply the execution of decisions that were already made, debated, and legally cleared during the pre-loss planning phase.
So the hard work was already done.
Exactly. The general counsel and the chief information security officer have to have that argument about network severance 6 months before the breach ever occurs.
Wow.
They have to establish the threshold, write the policy, and grant the pre-authorization. So when the threshold is met, the IT team doesn't ask for permission, they just execute the protocol. That pre-authorization is what generates the speed.
I really like the analogy of a relay race here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so think of this triad like a relay. The pre-loss planning is the months of grueling training, right? Building the muscle, practicing the form.
Right.
Then the speed of response is the actual split-second baton pass. It's critical, it's frantic, but it only works smoothly because of the training.
I love that.
And then, which naturally brings us to the after, you have business continuity. That's actually crossing the finish line.
Right.
If you don't train, if you don't plan, you drop the baton during the slow response and you forfeit the race. Your business fails.
That's exactly it. Continuity is the ultimate strategic goal here. It is survival, but it's also resilience. Continuity means that despite absorbing the inevitable loss, and entirely because of the speed of the response, the entity continues to function.
It might be limping.
Yeah, it might be operating at a reduced capacity or through secondary channels, but it remains a viable concern.
And it's not just about surviving to fight another day. There's this whole competitive aspect to this that often gets overlooked.
Oh, absolutely.
If a regional natural disaster hits and it knocks out both you and your primary competitor, the market share is suddenly up for grabs.
Yep.
If your pre-loss planning was superior and your speed of response allowed you to achieve business continuity 3 days faster than your competitor,
You're golden.
you aren't just surviving. You are actively capturing their frustrated client base. Continuity is like a massive competitive advantage disguised as a defensive measure.
It really highlights the causality of the entire framework. Business continuity is not an independent variable.
What do you mean?
I mean, you cannot simply command continuity into existence after a disaster strikes. The CEO cannot stand on the rubble and declare, "We will have continuity."
All right, I declare continuity.
Exactly. It doesn't work that way. Continuity is a direct mathematical output of the variables established in pre-loss planning and the subsequent speed of response.
So it's an equation.
It is. If the preparation variable is 0 or the speed variable is 0, the output continuity is 0.
Wow.
The framework links these concepts to demonstrate that crisis management cannot be compartmentalized. Peacetime preparation and wartime survival are inextricably linked.
Okay, so we have established these massive macro-level concepts: pre-loss planning, speed of response, business continuity. These are huge, abstract, boardroom topics. But what I find so compelling about this framework is the sudden pivot it makes right after this.
It gets very granular.
It really does. It doesn't stay in the clouds. It immediately zooms in on the micro-level mechanics required to actually achieve those macro goals.
Yes.
Under the heading of key concepts, the text identifies 3 specific data points: key contacts, shutoff locations, and priority actions.
And this transition is where the framework proves its practical value. The authors understand that grand strategic theory is totally useless if it isn't tethered to physical and operational reality.
Right.
A board can mandate business continuity all they want, but if the building is actively underwater, the mandate is irrelevant.
Right. You need a bucket, not a mandate.
Exactly. So let's dissect why these 3 specific, seemingly mundane concepts are elevated above everything else. We start with key contacts, which represents the human element of readiness.
Yeah, and on the surface, key contact sounds like a glorified phone tree.
It really does.
I mean, everyone has an Outlook directory. Everyone has Slack on their phone. Why elevate a contact list to a key strategic concept?
Because a standard corporate directory relies on standard corporate conditions.
Oh, that makes sense.
In a true crisis, normal conditions and normal hierarchies instantly collapse. Think about a catastrophic event. Let's say a massive chemical spill at a manufacturing plant at 3 a.m. on a Sunday.
Okay.
The plant manager is unreachable. The regional director is on a flight over the Atlantic. The CEO is asleep in another time zone. A standard directory just tells the night shift supervisor who they can't reach.
Which is terrifying in the moment.
Right. So key contacts in a strategic ERP isn't about finding a phone number. It is about establishing a pre-authorized delegation of authority.
It's the legal and operational chain of command when the primary links are broken.
Exactly. Who is legally authorized to order an evacuation? Who is authorized to speak to the local fire chief and actually hand over the hazmat manifests? Who has the financial authority to immediately deploy emergency remediation contractors without waiting for, like, a formal purchase order approval?
Because if you wait for the PO, the spill gets worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have not defined this, if the key contacts aren't established with pre-delegated authority, you get profound organizational paralysis.
People just freeze.
The people on the ground stand around waiting for permission to act, entirely afraid of violating corporate policy. And as we just discussed, when people wait, the speed of response plummets and the loss compounds.
That is such a critical distinction. It's about pre-clearing the red tape.
Yes.
The night shift supervisor needs to know that if they push the big red button, they have the full legal backing of the corporation because that authority was specifically delegated to them in the ERP.
Exactly.
Okay, the second key concept is shutoff locations. This is the physical element, and I have to say, this one feels jarringly granular to me.
I get that.
We are talking about overarching business continuity, competitive advantage, fiduciary duty. And the text elevates a physical water valve or a gas lever to the exact same level of importance as executive command and control. Why?
Because we have this profound tendency to over-intellectualize business strategy, particularly in an era dominated by digital operations and cloud computing.
Yeah, everything is in the cloud now.
We think modern risk is all about market positioning, algorithm changes, data streams. But we completely forget that the digital world requires a physical substrate.
The physical servers.
Right. What happens to your perfectly optimized, globally distributed cloud software company if a 2-inch water pipe bursts in the ceiling of your primary on-premise server room at midnight?
The servers are destroyed, the racks short out.
Exactly.
The data, if it's not backed up off-site, is literally gone forever.
And the difference between a minor puddle that requires a janitor with a mop and a catastrophic business-ending loss that destroys millions of dollars of hardware and incurs massive SLA penalties from your clients.
Yeah.
It often comes down to one singular piece of knowledge. Does the security guard on duty know exactly where the main water shutoff valve is, and do they have the physical tool required to turn it?
Wow. It's incredibly humbling, isn't it?
It really is.
Millions of dollars spent on cybersecurity, redundancy, brand marketing, and the ultimate Achilles heel of the entire enterprise is a $5 piece of brass plumbing hidden behind a drywall panel.
It is the physical reality asserting dominance over corporate theory. During a crisis, an executive's strategic vision means absolutely nothing if the facility is actively burning or flooding and no one present knows how to sever the fuel source.
That's a powerful point.
The macro strategy of continuity relies entirely on the micro knowledge of physical infrastructure. A known shutoff location is the ultimate physical manifestation of speed of response.
Right.
If it takes the local fire department 20 minutes to arrive, navigate the complex, and locate the gas shutoff during a fire, the structure is a total loss.
But if a trained employee can shut it off in 30 seconds?
The structure survives. The framework elevates shutoff locations because it recognizes that physical disasters are governed by the unforgiving laws of physics, not by board meetings or quarterly earnings reports. You have to stop the physical bleeding first, or there is no business left to continue.
That completely recontextualizes the physical space of a business. You cannot have continuity if your physical foundation is destroyed by your own ignorance of your infrastructure.
Precisely.
And that leads directly into the third micromechanic, priority actions. If key contacts are the human element and shutoffs are the physical element, this is the procedural element.
All right, this is the triage process.
Triage, right.
When a sudden, severe emergency happens, the environment becomes flooded with conflicting signals. There are 1,000 things screaming for attention simultaneously.
Literally screaming, sometimes.
Exactly. Alarms are sounding, people are panicked, clients are calling, systems are failing. The human brain cannot process 1,000 inputs at once. It degrades rapidly under that level of cognitive load. Priority actions dictate precisely what must be saved, secured, or executed first, second, and third. Everything else is ignored.
It's the corporate equivalent of triage in an emergency room. You don't set a broken arm if the patient is suffering from massive internal bleeding.
Exactly. And without predefined priority actions, human nature takes over. And employees will invariably waste precious time trying to save things that do not matter, or departments will literally fight each other over resources.
Oh, man, yeah.
Imagine a ransomware attack hits a bank. The marketing department is screaming because the public website is down and it's a massive PR nightmare.
Right.
The operations team is panicking because internal email is frozen. But the core banking infrastructure, the actual ledger that tracks customer deposits, is under active threat.
That's the real emergency.
Right. Without priority actions, the IT response team might splinter their focus, trying to appease all the screaming department heads.
Which dilutes the speed of response across the board and practically guarantees the attackers succeed.
Precisely. Priority actions strip away the noise. They establish an undeniable hierarchy of value. In that scenario, the ERP dictates that priority action 1 is securing the deposit ledger, even if it means deliberately keeping the public website and internal email offline for 3 extra days.
Wow.
It aligns the immediate, chaotic tactical response with the ultimate strategic goal of the organization's survival. It removes the burden of choice from the people on the ground.
So we have a comprehensive anatomy of readiness here. We have the human chain of command, the physical control of the environment, and the procedural triage. It's a brilliant triad.
It is very robust.
But here is the massive friction point that the framework immediately pivots to address.
Good.
We can have all the comprehensive lists in the world. We can map out every brass valve in the building, legally delegate authority to every night supervisor, and mathematically optimize our priority actions. But absolutely none of that matters if the human beings involved freeze up, panic, or physically cannot recall the information during an actual emergency.
Yep, the human factor.
This moves us from the mechanics of readiness into the psychological core of the framework. The text provides what it calls the primary insight, and it is remarkably succinct. It just says, familiarity speeds recovery.
And those 3 words carry the weight of an entire textbook on crisis psychology and cognitive science.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It addresses the fundamental flaw in how, 90% of organizations approach preparedness. No. It is not enough to simply possess an emergency ready profile. You can hire the best consultants in the world, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and have the most beautifully designed, comprehensive strategic tool in existence sitting on a secure server. But if the organizational body, the actual human beings who have to execute it, are not intimately familiar with it, the document is functionally useless.
Let's ground this in a very human experience. Think about the difference between driving a brand new rental car and driving your own personal car.
Okay.
You fly into a new city, you rent a car you've never sat in before, and you pull onto a busy highway. Suddenly, a torrential downpour starts, and the car begins to hydroplane.
Terrifying.
Right. What happens physiologically? You panic. Your heart rate spikes. You don't intuitively know the weight distribution of this vehicle. You don't know the sensitivity of the anti-lock brakes. You might not even know where the windshield wiper control is.
You're just scrambling.
Your brain is desperately scrambling to process a dozen novel variables while simultaneously trying not to crash into a concrete barrier.
The cognitive load basically exceeds the brain's processing capacity. You're trying to learn the system while actively surviving the failure of the system.
Exactly. But contrast that with the exact same scenario in your own car, the car you commute in every single day for years. If your own car starts to hydroplane, your reaction is entirely different.
Right.
You still experience a jolt of adrenaline, but the paralyzing panic isn't there. Muscle memory takes over.
Yeah.
You instinctively know exactly how much pressure to apply to those specific brakes. You know how the steering wheel feels when it loses traction. Your deep familiarity with the vehicle bypasses the cognitive overload. You don't have to think about what to do. Your body just does it. Familiarity prevents panic.
I love that analogy. That is a perfect encapsulation of the neuroscience underpinning this framework's primary insight.
Oh, the neuroscience of it.
Yeah, because during a sudden severe crisis, the human brain undergoes a massive chemical shift. Cortisol and adrenaline flood the system. The amygdala, the primitive threat detection center of the brain, essentially hijacks the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex is the logical part, right?
Exactly. It's responsible for logical reasoning, reading comprehension, complex decision-making. So when the amygdala hijacks it, the classic fight, flight, or freeze response is activated.
Yeah.
And in that altered neurological state, working memory drops to near zero.
Meaning you literally cannot learn new information.
You cannot. People cannot read complex, multi-page procedural manuals while fire alarms are blaring, strobe lights are flashing, and smoke is filling a corridor.
Right.
They cannot parse dense legal language regarding delegated authority while a hacker is actively deleting their client database. Their brains are fundamentally incapable of processing new, written information under that level of acute stress.
So if your ERP is just a pristine 50-page document that nobody has ever looked at until the moment the crisis hits, you're completely doomed.
Completely.
It is a psychological impossibility for the staff to utilize it.
The employees will just stare at the binder or the PDF on their screen, completely unable to comprehend the words.
Yeah.
Familiarity speeds recovery means that the plan must be ingrained to the point of muscle memory. Familiarity acts as a neurological shortcut.
So it bypasses the panic.
Exactly. When the alarm sounds, if the employee is deeply familiar with the key concepts, if they already know, without thinking, who the alternate contact is, if they have physically walked the path to the shutoff valve a dozen times, if the top 3 priority actions are second nature, they don't need to read the manual.
Right.
They bypass the paralyzing effects of the amygdala hijack and move directly into execution. And as we established in the timeline, execution equals speed of response, and speed of response dictates business continuity.
It is incredible how tightly woven this all is. Every single concept supports the next.
It really is an elegant framework.
The framework is telling us that familiarity isn't just a nice-to-have, feel-good metric for an HR audit. It is the literal biological antidote to psychological paralysis. It is the lubricant that makes the mechanical speed of response possible in a human system.
And it exposes a massive failure in traditional corporate resource allocation, too.
How so?
Well, most organizations will spend 95% of their risk management budget and energy creating the plan, writing the document, and paying consultants to format it nicely.
Well, the binder.
The binder, exactly. And they spend maybe 5% of their energy ensuring anyone in the building is actually familiar with it.
Oh, man.
This primary insight demands that you invert that ratio. The value of the ERP is not contained within the physical existence of the document. The value is contained entirely within the staff's familiarization with the protocols.
which brings us to the philosophical climax of this framework. We are looking at the final section labeled authority quotes.
Yes, these are great.
There are two anchoring statements here that tie everything we've discussed into a cohesive philosophy of readiness. The first statement is, the plan matters before the problem.
And if we connect this statement back to our very first discussion about reframing the ERP from a sales pitch to a strategic tool, the depth of this quote becomes really apparent. The plan matters before the problem underscores a brutal, unforgiving reality of crisis management. You cannot construct the lifeboat while the ship is already underwater.
It seems obvious when you say it out loud, but corporate behavior constantly contradicts it. Companies constantly try to invent protocols on the fly during a crisis.
Because inventing protocols during peacetime feels like a distraction from revenue generation.
Right. It feels like wasted time.
Exactly. But the framework is asserting that the true value of the emergency ready profile is generated almost entirely in times of peace.
Oh, that makes sense.
The agonizing discussions over who actually has delegated authority, the turf wars between departments over what constitutes a priority action, the physical friction of making the executive team walk down to the boiler room to locate the shutoff valves.
All of that has to happen before.
All of that friction must occur before the problem manifests. Because once the problem exists, time evaporates. You no longer have the luxury of debate. The quote is a severe warning against organizational complacency. It tells leadership that if they wait for the crisis to validate the necessity of the plan, they have already lost the business.
But I want to throw a major curveball at this philosophy. Let's look at the friction of reality here.
Okay, throw it.
Let's say a highly disciplined company does exactly what this framework demands. They build the strategic ERP. They identify the key contacts and the physical shutoffs. They conduct relentless tabletop exercises until everyone is deeply familiar with the protocols.
The perfect student.
Right. They do all of this grueling work before the problem. But what if the problem that actually hits them is completely unprecedented? What if they spent 2 years meticulously planning for a regional earthquake, but they get hit by a globally coordinated, AI-driven supply chain poisoning attack that corrupts their software updates?
A total left field scenario.
Yes. The scenario they planned for didn't happen. Did they just waste millions of dollars and thousands of man-hours? Does the plan still matter if the disaster is entirely different?
You are hitting on the ultimate executive pushback right there. The black swan argument.
Right.
Why spend resources planning for specific unknowns when the universe is infinitely chaotic? Why plan for an earthquake if a pandemic might hit?
Exactly.
And the answer to that profound dilemma lies in the second authority, quote, provided by the framework. Speed comes from preparation.
How does that resolve the black swan problem, though? If you prepared for the wrong thing, how does that give you speed?
We'll look closely at the phrasing. The framework does not say accuracy comes from preparation or perfect prediction comes from preparation.
No, right?
It says speed, even if the exact nature of the disaster was completely unpredicted. Even if the scenario is entirely novel and outside the scope of the physical document. The rigorous act of preparation fundamentally alters the DNA of the organization.
How so?
By forcing the company through the grueling process of pre-loss planning, by legally establishing the hierarchy of alternate key contacts, by forcing disparate departments to agree on triage and priority actions, you have forged a flexible, highly agile environment.
Ah, I see. You've built the organizational muscle mass.
Yes.
Even if you are suddenly asked to lift a completely different kind of weight, you still have the muscle to lift it.
Precisely. The organization now possesses a shared vocabulary for managing crisis. The emergency communication channels, the out-of-band networks, have been tested and proven to work. The leadership team knows how to triage conflicting information under severe psychological pressure.
Because they've practiced it.
Exactly. The speed of response doesn't magically appear because you possessed a binder that perfectly predicted the future. The speed manifests because you built foundational tools, established deep internal trust, and created a resilient psychological mindset that is ready to deploy instantly.
Regardless of whether the threat is a fire, a flood, or a cyber extortionist.
Exactly. The process of planning is infinitely more valuable than the final written plan itself.
That is a profound shift in perspective. The preparation itself is the strategy. It's not about handing out a script for every conceivable disaster. It's about relentlessly training the actors so they can improvise brilliantly together when the theater itself catches on fire.
And that level of elite improvisation is only possible if they are deeply, instinctively familiar with the stage, the props, the exits, and the capabilities of everyone else in the cast.
Man, what a fantastic way to look at it. So let's step back and synthesize this journey we've just taken through this framework.
It's been quite a ride.
We started with a concept that most people dismiss as bureaucratic noise, an emergency ready profile. We started with the metaphorical fire extinguisher gathering dust in the hallway, existing only to satisfy an auditor.
And we completely dismantled that perception, really elevating it to an existential requirement.
We did. We moved from reframing the ERP as a vital, board-level strategic tool inextricably linked to fiduciary duty rather than an annoying vendor sales pitch. We traced the unforgiving mathematical timeline of a crisis, realizing that the rigor of pre-loss planning dictates the speed of response, which is the only mechanism that can produce the ultimate goal of business continuity.
Yes.
We zoomed in on the critical, granular mechanics, understanding that a mundane water shutoff valve and the knowledge of its location is just as critical to corporate survival as the CEO's emergency contact number.
We also unpacked the neurological and psychological truths at the center of human systems.
Yeah.
That the brain degrades under pressure, and that deep, ingrained familiarity with the protocols is the only biological antidote to paralyzing panic.
And finally, we explored the underlying philosophy that the difficult, friction-filled work must be done in times of peace, because the rigorous act of preparation builds the agility and muscle memory required to survive the unimaginable black swan events.
Beautifully summarized.
We've taken a compliance checklist and revealed it to be a comprehensive philosophy of operational survival. But as we wrap up this analysis, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Something to seriously consider when you walk into your office, your facility, or log into your corporate network tomorrow.
Yeah, so we have clearly established the premise that familiarity speeds recovery, and that a plan only truly matters before the problem.
Right.
If we accept those two premises as the absolute realities of crisis management, then having an emergency ready profile beautifully printed in a binder or neatly organized in a cloud folder is fundamentally not enough.
Not even close.
In fact, it is worse than nothing
Yeah.
because it creates a dangerous illusion of safety.
A false sense of security.
Exactly. So ask yourself and your leadership team this question. How often do you need to intentionally break your own company in peacetime?
Break it.
Break it. How often do you need to physically simulate a disaster, sever your networks, and disrupt your own operations before a written profile truly transforms from a static document into institutional muscle memory?
That is the friction point where theory meets reality. Until next time, keep diving deep.